Hello, my name is Mia. Do you know the story about the boy who cried wolf? Well, something like this happened to me. Once in school, I was really tired and wanted to go home, but I couldn't just leave whenever I wanted. So I had to come up with an excuse. I acted like I had stomach pain, and after a visit to the nurse, where my acting skills truly shined, I was free to go home. I was amazed by how easy it was to trick teachers into believing something like that. Soon, I was using tricks like this regularly. Sometimes I would come up with an elaborate story about how I couldn't do my homework or test because I hurt my hand. And like a true master of disguise, I would have my hand completely bandaged up. Other times, I would leave school saying that I forgot my keys or that I needed to go to the doctor. And yes, I would go as far as forging documents to give to my teachers as proof that I actually visited my doctor. Usually, I would either go home or to my grandma's house because she would feed me food that only grandmas are capable of cooking. I loved my grandma because we were very similar. Both of us had a dark sense of humor and an adventurous spirit, so she always laughed when I told her how I escaped from school this time. Although, she would say that I probably shouldn't do something like that too often. I'm very ashamed of it now, but once I really wanted to see a new movie, and during the evenings, movie theaters were usually too busy. So I lied and said that my grandma died, and I needed to go to her funeral so the teacher would let me leave. You might ask, why would I do that? And, well, it's because all my usual tricks weren't effective anymore. You see, one day I needed to do a presentation and I wasn't ready, so I did what I do best. I put on a scarf and pretended that I lost my voice. And I did it for several days before the presentation, so everyone would believe me. Yeah, I even tricked my classmates, so nobody suspected a thing. I was caught by complete accident. One of my classmates had a squeaky chair during one lesson, so he changed it to a better one. But then he accidentally dropped it on my toe while dragging it back, and I screamed. Everyone, including the teacher, looked at me, shocked. The only thing I could say was, "Wow, my voice miraculously came back." Needless to say, teachers didn't really believe me after that, so I had to stop. A very important test was coming up soon, and I was studying for it. My intention was to really study and get a good grade. And then, my grandma died, just like that. I would never hear her laughing at my stories again, or eat her amazing food, or even see her. It broke me down. But also, my test was at the same time as the funeral, so I talked with my teacher about it, explaining the situation, and she answered, "Oh, your grandma died again? Or is it a different grandma? Stop it, Mia. You're not going to be able to get out of this test." I was shocked, but I also knew it was my fault. Nobody would believe me in this situation. I called my parents and explained the situation to them, but they were angry at me for using Grandma's death as an excuse before, so they said I had to deal with it myself, especially because they were very busy with organizing the funeral. So my final plan was to go take the test, finish it, and get to the funeral as fast as I could. I was sitting there, and I really couldn't concentrate. My tears were falling down on my paper because I couldn't stop thinking that I was missing the funeral because I was such a liar. But I kept trying to finish this test, despite not being able to think about anything else except my grandma. And my tears didn't really help me, because I pulled this trick off before, and the teacher thought I was pretending. I went quietly to my teacher and said, "Please, let me go. My grandma really died." But she just answered, "I don't believe you, Mia. Sit down and finish the test." I had to make a decision to fail this very important test that would have a huge effect on my overall grade, or to try to finish it. I decided that my grandma's funeral was more important than this test. So I stood up and left the room despite my teacher's protests. I ran as fast as possible, changed my shoes, and immediately called a taxi, spending all my savings to be on time for the funeral. Everyone there was crying, and I was crying even harder than anyone else. I couldn't believe that she wasn't with us anymore. And what's worse, I could have lost the last chance to say goodbye to her, even symbolically. Later, after a few days, my parents talked with my teachers a lot, explaining the situation, but also finding out the extent of my lies. They were really angry with me, although Dad was a little impressed too, and said to the teacher that they would be much more strict with me from now on. I retook the test and passed it, and now my parents were monitoring my activity and checking up on whether I was in school or not. All of it was very silly, but I do believe that my granny was watching me from heaven and laughing at me finally getting in trouble. I love you, Granny. You were the best partner in crime a girl could ever have. How did you escape from school, and what kind of trouble did you get in? Share your stories in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe.